Hi, how you guys doing? It's Charles Andrew Payne. You might know me as Brees from MacGyver, and you are listening to the MacGyver podcast with Mac Jackson.
Hi, I'm Richard Dean Anderson.
Name's MacGyver.
Colonel Jack O'Neill, SG-1.
My name is Pratt. Ernest Pratt.
I always get a happy, tingly feeling when I see those guys.
Name one contract that I failed to execute.
MacGyver.
Oh, here we go.
You're a target. And I don't intend to miss.
Over my rotting corpse. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Glowing eyes, cliche behavior, evilness, that kind of thing.
Is mental illness contagious?
You think?
You can do anything you want to do if you put your mind. Well, you do have a penchant for pulling brilliant ideas out of your butt. Head. Out of your head when we need them. Oh, stuff's already here. I just find a different way to use it.
I like your attitude.
Permission to take a team through the Stargate, sir.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the MacGyver podcast, the podcast of all you love in MacGyver, SG-1, anything where you're creative and celebrating the life and career of Richard Dean Anderson and all his shows. Today, I'm lucky enough to have Charles Andrew Payne on, who I know from a lot of things, Dead Zone, Highlander, a couple appearances in Stargate SG-1, but I knew him first from MacGyver as Brees. So here he is. Hi.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course. So lots to chat about, and there's no rule here, so we're just shooting the breeze. Coincidentally. Did not plan that at all.
Didn't plan that at all. You didn't stay up late at night, right? Scripting that out.
Right before it came out of my lips, I said, should I continue talking? Yeah, who cares?
Why not?
I just watched, coincidentally, not in preparation because I've seen these episodes a trillion times, so I can recite them, but I happened to watch the gun episode. And
one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, it's a heck of an episode, as I gotta say, all of your episodes have been. You have been in critical episodes. Like, you're not just the guy off to the side. There's a rhythm to episodic TV, and it's wonderful. And if they do it right, it's a wonderful comfort. And you always know the rhythm. But in the episodes that you've been in, starting with the challenge, I believe, those are meaty, gut punch episodes. Yes. I mean, there's the Madonna, obviously the gun. Yeah. They take a step off to the side and dive into the character's psyche much deeper than, And as I'm watching the gun, it dawned on me, Brees has an arc. Not a one-note character. Like, it starts off in the challenge, he's a gang member. That's, you kind of take for granted the fact that certain characters you recognize, you're comfortable with, so you go, yeah, it makes sense they'd be at the Challengers Club. But your character grew, and that's something for not even being the title character of a show.
You know what? Let me give you a little background for context.
Yeah.
Brees was supposed to be a one-off. I auditioned for MacGyver 4 different times, 4 different characters. Got Brees. Was a fantastic opening, and that was back. You might the other character on there that everybody knows now is Cuba Gooding Jr. That's when we met. And Brees was a one-off because it's supposed to be kind of like a feeder for Cuba's character. Cube is the good kid, and he's the archetypal of the good kid. And he used to be a former gang member, and Brees is a diehard gang member, right? Leader of the gang. And the writer pulled me aside after about the 4th day of filming, and he says, what you're doing with this character, we have to see his life. We have to learn a little bit more about him.
Really?
And, yeah. And that's how it kind of evolved. And then they would do the Challenger series, of episodes where, they would talk about the kids, and MacGyver would volunteer there, but the story wouldn't be about MacGyver as much as it would be about the kids volunteering and helping out, and also how the people who run the Boys and Girls Club, the Challenger Club, and their interactions. I usually think they had enough material that they could have spun that off into a standalone series if they wanted.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Right. So it was, an absolute thrill to get to do that and be part of that. And then, they say, oh yeah, we're bringing you back for a couple more episodes. And every episode you went, whoa, like, wow, this right.
Yeah.
This is some meat and potatoes, things you can sink your teeth into. So.
Well, I'll tell you, I had the writers on, and they were sharing some insight because, like, the Madonna episode.
Yeah.
You got your character is quite mouthy. We watch it every year, and it's like a Christmas tradition now. Just because, and it's not overly Christmas, but I wouldn't mind it had it been. You know what I mean? Like that type of, some shows I wish they had done more Christmas episodes. I would have liked another MacGyver Christmas episode because that's very heavy for him, dealing with, talking about his mother. But at the same time, Brees, he's not having a good time either.
No, it's a big transition for him because he's literally walked away from being a gang leader, and he's still trying to find his own path. And then all this heavy emotional stuff comes up, and that was a hard episode for me as well, because it really resonated at home.
Yeah.
And some of those great scenes, like that pool hall scene.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That a lot of that dialogue just, they would say cut, and at the end of that day filming that pool hall scene, I went home just feeling exhausted, just feeling emotionally
drained. Yeah, I'll tell you, because Rick Drew was on and we were talking about it, and we both, in the discussion, and we're not watching it, we're talking about it.
Yeah. We
both got filled up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at a grown man and he's looking at me, and we got the tears here.
Yeah.
And now I'm showing it to my kids, 11 and 8, and they know, it's Christmas time. We got to watch the Madonna.
Yep.
And I swear, we still get choked up because the pool hall scene, even the harshness of Brees telling Cynthia, "Back off, woman."
Yeah, exactly.
That cracks me up because I'm like, ooh.
Yes, and that line in the pool hall when he says to her, the only thing my father ever gave me was the back of his hand. I was just like, whoa, okay. That opens a whole little bit of room as to who he is, where he came from, what his history was like, why he, was on the streets as a gang leader, and why he was so tough on his people, and why he's having a hard time with authority when he has to talk to Cynthia. That's right.
And then he's in a safe space, but still resists. Like, I may have, MacGyver, I may know you and I'm going to talk to you, but I'm not really sharing with anybody.
Yeah. And I don't need parents.
Yeah.
So, Cynthia, back off of me. I'm doing what I'm doing what you told me to, but I may not be doing it at the pace that you want, but you need to chill.
Yeah.
And for me as an actor, people would say to me, but you played this guy and he's so mean and he's so recalcitrant and that's not you. And I'm like, yeah, it's called acting.
It's acting.
But it still had to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the moment when he goes in and says to Cynthia, I didn't know what to get you, so I thought this attitude was a nice start.
Yes.
Boom, right there.
Boom. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
It's when you have to applaud writers for giving you good material, because we don't always get good, nice material that shows your humanity, right, and a range of emotions. That's what, for me, all of those experiences.
And that's one of those things about MacGyver that is timeless, is they're sending a message and they're getting into the dark guts of the world, but at no point do you feel like they're standing on a soapbox preaching.
No.
Right? It's a delicate balance. I mean, I know writing and acting myself, and it's very easy to just go too much with hammering or ham-fisting the message.
Yeah.
And, Harry Chapin always said with his writing, he couldn't say it directly. He had to tell a story and let you come around on your own.
And that's the best writing there is. I'm a writer myself, and that's the best writing that is that. And I don't like when you watch a show or a movie and they direct you to where they want you to go. I want you to tell the story and let me walk away from it and take away from it what I got from it. And then it makes it, to me, it's an excellent episode of a TV show or an excellent movie if I finish it and I go, man, I need to sit down and talk to somebody about this. I need to sit down and, tell me what you saw, and we can have a dialogue and have some discourse and exchange. Now, that's good writing. If you tie it all up in a nice bow at the end of this and tell me, here, this is what you're supposed to think and feel and walk away. Thank you very much. No, I'm good.
Have you noticed that in the last, I don't know, we'll say 5 to 10 years, it seems like certain popular shows tend to tell you, you need to know that these two guys are best friends, and you need to know, they basically come out and tell you how you should feel.
It's right by numbers.
Right. And you're like, I'm not a cow. Treat me like a smart human being and I'll get there on my own.
I'm capable of intelligent thought. I'm capable of critical thinking, which, by the way, I think is severely lacking in our modern culture. But we won't go down that rabbit hole. But
I know. I have to stop myself a lot of the time too.
Yes.
But
telling a good story is key, and telling a story arc with characters that grow and develop and have an opinion. That may not always be a popular opinion, but at least gives you another perspective, another way to look at things. I'm in.
Yeah,
right.
Agreed. And it's so hard to come by, and when you get it, you grab onto that show. And like, I need to support this and watch this and praise it, and
Yes.
It's like what I always say about social media. The whole point of this podcast and anything else that I do, it's not about me. It's about pushing the good, celebrating, the inspiration. And I hope I'm pushing the good as much as I possibly can while I'm here. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, I'm hoping that you are too, because it's that very much needed.
I know.
Oh. Right now, very much needed. Right.
I know. I pray November is. I said to my wife, in November I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry anyway. It's just a matter of why. Either it's out of celebration or it's, oh God, no. So
yeah, but the thing is this. It doesn't matter who, is in charge at the end of the day, as much as it is who you are as an individual, what you do to push the change forward. America's one way. Every country has its issues. And if you go from a micro, me, my immediate family, my friends, and then the macro, my community, my culture, my country, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Right. And there's a lot of, and again, as storytellers, we are so fortunate to be storytellers, as whether as a writer, as an actor. I just consider myself, being able to be part of an integral part of creation, be part of the creative process. It is our job to reflect back and say, hey, there's another way to look at it. You know, as you probably know, I'm also a stand-up comedian. I do a lot of comedy shows, and I always say, you know, it's my job to educate while I entertain. As an actor, it's my job to educate while I entertain. And it's not to hit you on the head with it, but it's to say, have you looked at it from this perspective?
Yeah.
Here's another way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
And we need those voices now more than ever, because the truth is being hidden from us.
Yeah.
The people who are supposed to be leading with integrity and with the leadership is not about being out in front giving direction. Leadership is about showing how and being a servant to the people. And you know, I don't see that happening, so I can't rely on those people to do it, but I have to take it upon myself to show leadership at a micro level to my family, my wife and to my kids, at the macro level to the people that I encounter on a day-to-day basis, and I'm hoping through osmosis, right? People go, oh, there's another way to look at it. And I'm not saying that your idea is wrong, but right now we are severely lacking in civil discourse.
Even just having the conversation is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I
We're-
know, because
yeah.
nobody wants to have it.
No.
And-
Everybody had, you know, we are living in a culture of experts.
Right.
Everybody has graduated from the, you know, University of Facebook.
That's true. And like,
yeah.
it's ripples in a water, like you said, with our children. Like I try to do the same, and I'm so proud when I watch them, when they don't know I'm watching them, but I watch how they interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch how they I always teach my kids, be leaders, not followers, because it's the truth. And it doesn't mean that you have to be bossy. It means first and foremost, know yourself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know when to speak up, know when to keep your mouth shut, and be in control of you. And don't worry so much about, you know, in their case, their classmate or whatever, because they'll come home with stories and tell me, oh, this kid in class today. I'm like, that's his problem. Don't take his problem on to yourself.
Yes.
And sure enough, I'm telling you, through the years, I watch him. My son is the older of the two. They flock to him. They're originally, you know, doing their own thing, and it could be something minor like bad mouthing what was popular yesterday. You know how kids do that?
Yes.
I loved it yesterday, but today apparently it's cooler to say that's lame. Well, he sticks to his guns, and then those kids respect him, and now go, oh, I see what you're talking about. Just what you said. Let's talk about it, and I will explain my side, and then you can make your own decision.
Yes, I tell my children, you know, to circle back, two things. You know, we can't all be sheep. Someone has to step up and be the shepherd. So that's rule one.
That's a good line.
Right.
Yeah.
The second thing is that start with the assumption that what you know and what you think you know might be wrong. So if you start from there, then you're open and receptive to learning other things. But if you absolutely believe that the concept, the idea that you have is the one, and you are hanging on so tight, you're not open to hearing anybody else's point of view. Everybody else has to come around to your point of view. But if you start with, hey, you know what? I think I know this, but I could be wrong. So tell me what you see. Tell me how you experience it. And I'm open to listening. I'm open to take that in. I'm open to go, hey, I never thought of it that way before. And that makes sense, right? Or I hear what you have to say and I say, you know what? I celebrate your right to have that opinion and view. I don't agree with it necessarily, but on your way.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I found there's a motto that tends to, when you think about it, it's give, forgive, and be humble. Everything in your life touches on those. If you think about it, everything, either, you know, people, situations, one of those three words.
Yeah.
And humble is a big one. Not enough people are humble.
Oh, yes. I just say, you know, but first seek to do no harm. If you start with your intention that way, seek to do no harm, that's a good place to start.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And again, and be humble. I mean, again, wow. I feel extraordinarily blessed to live the life that I live. feel extraordinarily blessed to do what I do. And like I said, every day that I get to write, perform, I get to participate in creation.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Wow. If you cannot be awed by that, and I show up and people are like, man, you're white, you seem so happy. I'm like, first of all, I'm a Canadian entertainer. So the fact that I get to work is a joy to begin with. And that I get the opportunity to bring things to life, whether it be material that I wrote or somebody else wrote, the fact that I get to perform and bring joy, and people, it resonates with people, and they want to talk to you about it, they want to be engaged with it. What a gift.
Right. How blessed.
Yeah.
I know.
I've lived a charmed and blessed life.
And everybody that I've ever met who's in the entertainment world, through either working with them or meeting them socially, I can honestly say, and this goes for, in particular, MacGyver and Stargate folk, they're all cut from the same cloth, where they're all, like you said, your priorities are straight. Why would you not be good to people? You're lucky. It drives me nuts. Not that I've had many exposure to it, but when you see an actor or an entertainer that decides to be a rude, arrogant SOB, like, I don't get that. Like, wait a minute, this can go away like that.
Well, let me tell you a story about this, because I've been acting since I was 12. I'll be 54 in November. I've been doing this for some time, and I'll be honest with you, the entertainment industry terrifies me. The artifice of it can be overwhelming and terrifying, but I was just coming up. I was just new, green as grass, and I was out having lunch with my manager at the time, and someone recognized me, and of course that scared me. And so and she said, and they said, "Oh, aren't you?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And so they left, and my manager looked at me, and Dot Bristow, my manager at the time, she looked at me and she said, "Charles, breathe in. Next time that happens, say thank you very much. Breathe out and move on." She says, "You are fortunate to get to do what you do, but more importantly, you get to do what you do because they like what you do." Right? And it hurts no one for you to take a moment and say thank you. And then I was a young teenage boy, and that lesson stuck with me. Right? That it hurts no one to take a moment, show some gratitude, because they could, as much as they love you today, they can turn on you tomorrow and hate you tomorrow, and you're gonna long for these moments where somebody actually recognizes you for you.
Right?
Coincidentally, as I've gotten much older, no one recognizes me for me. I get mistaken for that other guy, Samuel L. Jackson, all the time.
Do you seriously? Wow. Do you hear the cursing coming out of my mouth? I'm not him. Wow, isn't that funny?
Yeah. So now when people are like, "Hey, aren't you?" I'm like, "Oh, here it comes." And
"Hey, Brees." "Yes, I'm Brees." "Holy crap, thank you." Yeah, that's why when I saw you on social media, I'm like, oh, I'm familiar with a lot of what he does besides Brees, and I'm glad you're on here. Let me be friends with him.
Yeah. So.
But how old are your kids?
I have an 18-year-old and one who will be 13 in December. Yeah.
Both boys or?
Yeah, 2 boys.
I have a boy and a girl.
Oh, and how old?
Mikey's 11 and Everly is 8.
Oh, wow. So they're still, yes.
But I'll tell you, they're wise beyond their years. They're very mature. They'll have conversations with adults, and then they'll come over to me and go, "How old are they?" Wow, that was the deepest conversation I've had, and and I'm like, okay, winning. That's a good thing.
Well, I tell them both all the time, that when I grow up, I want to be them.
Yeah. Right.
Because especially my soon to be 13-year-old, he's probably one of the coolest cats I've ever met. He's an entertainer as well. He's a competitive dancer. He's a singer. He's an actor. But that kid, for as long as I can remember, you would say something to him, man, that's fantastic. He just looks, he goes, I'm just Kale. That's his name, right? So I say to him, man, when I grow up, I want to be as cool as you. I want to be as grounded and aware and self-aware as you are. Like you're my hero, you're my idol, because he's so brave. Particularly the fact that him being a competitive dancer and a boy, where it's like 95% girls and a few him and his dance studio, there's like 3 boys, and he's been dancing since he's 4. But he's brave and he's fearless when he gets on stage. And I look at him and I'm like, to see him dance, I cry every time I watch him dance, because he's so talented, but also because he's so brave. I mean, not a lot of boys are out there being, doing ballet and jazz and tap and all of that, and fearless. And other boys are like, might want to make fun of him. And he just kind of looks, he goes, I don't care. I just do what I want to do. Right?
That's wonderful.
And I'm like, dude, you are my hero.
So
I want
ahead
to be
of the
you.
curve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the worst thing, is the peer pressure and the teasing or whatever. Like my son last year decided that he was going to act in the school play. And that's voluntary. He didn't have to. And I thought, ooh, okay. This could be good. This could be very good, but he's also a child, and he's going to learn some lessons. I think he's going to be in front of people. He might get stage fright. He might overact. He may, read his line as opposed to say it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not bragging when I say this. I'll never forget it. Tears, because I'm watching him and he's so natural. He didn't overact, but yet you're on stage. Stage is different, as you know, than film.
Yeah.
Like when you do film, I've done film, and you don't have to emphasize your expression. But on stage, you got to do it a little bigger. He did it, and it wasn't, everybody else paled in comparison. I thought, I want to watch him and I did, obviously, he's my kid, but for the whole 2 hours, I just watched him, whether he had a line or not. And you could see the glow of being in the moment. He wasn't like a kid his age. You figure, unless it's my line, I don't really need to pay attention to the scene. But he did. He was in it, and he would react, and the little gestures. And then when he had a line, it didn't feel like here's my reading.
Yeah, here's everybody else stopped talking. Oh, it must be my turn.
But and he did some ad-lib stuff on stage that I was like,
half of it is that means he's got some natural instincts, because I've taught acting to kids as well. And one of the first things I do is I will give them a paragraph to read. I give them all the exact same paragraph to read. They get 5 minutes to go outside, come back in the room, and read me the paragraph. And that's how I know whether you have it or not. Because acting, I do not believe, can be taught. You either have it or you don't. Then you can finesse it and improve upon it. But some kids would just come in and they just read the lines. Blah, 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 blah. So, okay, that's great. And other kids would come in and they'd be like, well, they give it a different character, or they give it a different accent. And I'm like, there's no instructions. It's just a paragraph. And it's like, I'm like, so why did you because when I read it, that's what came to me.
nice.
See, I can work with that. Because that's part of my process. When I first get a script, or, even if it's for an audition, I literally sit down with a pen next to me, pen and paper. And as I read, whatever thoughts come to my head as I'm reading is what I write down. That's the foundational piece. That's how I get to build, and some stuff just organically comes to you.
Yeah, I love when that happens. I love that.
This line has to be delivered this way. And then you find some nuggets sometimes where it's like it's written serious, but you're reading it and you start laughing. You're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh here, but let's make a note of that, because that's funny to me. And then you show up and the writer goes, you got it. That was my intention. Nobody else got that. I think that's funny. Right? And I'm like, yeah, I thought it was funny too. Right?
I've written things one way and performed them a different way. Because in the moment, based on the previous lines, like, ooh, that wouldn't fit the way it was written.
Yeah.
Let me,
well, gotta organically let it come out. Like so when you're saying that, and for me, the hardest part of actors are always like, how many lines do I have? For me, it's what's the scene about? Because And it's interesting. Why I'm drawing a blank right now. Though in the Madonna, the lady who played the Madonna, whose name escapes me right now.
Oh, the actress?
Yeah, the actress.
She was wasn't it her name Carol?
Yeah,
The character's name was Carol.
yeah. But she said to me, great bit of acting advice. You can steal a scene as an actor, she says, even if you don't have lines in it. Give the editor something to work with. Be present and aware and respond.
Jeanette Nolan.
Thank you, Jeanette Nolan. I was cycling through my Rolodex.
I know, I'm with you.
Talking Jeanette Nolan, and so she says to me, and she was a wonderful, wonderful woman. Great, full of advice, and had been in the game for so long.
Very sweet.
Yes, and for a young guy just coming up, I still considered myself green as grass, just coming up, finding my way in this industry. And when she said that to me, she goes, actors forget. Sometimes you can see them waiting for their moment so they can say their line. She goes, if you're actually listening and responding before you even open your mouth, you give the editor something to work with. And then when you're actually watching the movie, sometimes you'll see the other actors talking. They have a lot of dialogue, but who is the editor gone to? It's the person who's given me the response, right? That, she says, is acting. The other stuff is just walking, talking, and chewing gum. Acting is being in the moment and listening, actively listening, taking in information, and responding as a human being, and giving the editor something to work with, or else it's two talking heads. And I was like, yeah. And then so you kind of learn to do that. And yeah, I've been notorious for, first of all, I'm a Canadian actor based out of Canada. We don't always get all the big roles to try out for. Sometimes the scenes that we get, are expository. How do you make some meat and potatoes out of an expository scene? By being an active listener, being present in the scene, giving the editor something to work with. And then lo and behold, you may have only had 5 lines, but guess who dominated the scenes? You.
Yeah. There's some actors, Richard Dean Anderson included, but like David Tennant. The other day I was just talking about that. I said, David Tennant, Richard Dean Anderson, and I named a couple others. I said, it doesn't matter what they're in or if they have a line, I'm watching them because they're so much fun to watch. The other person's, having their whole dialogue. Well, Carter in particular on SG1 or Daniel will have this big, long dialogue to explain the research. But I wait for those scenes to see him because he's not overacting, but he is reacting.
Yeah,
that's fun. That's what makes a fun character.
Yep. And your eyes drawn to those people, and you're like, oh, you're not saying anything, but you're saying a whole lot in that scene without having any dialogue. And that, to me, that's fantastic. That's a gift for the actor. It's a gift for the editor. It's also a gift for the writer, because you're now taking something that's literally black and white on the page and bringing it to full color.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, right. And you get that. I love that you get that. One of the reasons I couldn't wait to talk to you, because I knew that you got that. And I knew that you're not just saying a line, you're feeling everything that you do. I mean, to be a writer too, it's in your guts. It's a vocation. So many people don't necessarily get that. They just wait for their line. They go, look, I'm in a movie. You know what I mean?
You're in a scene.
I've met a couple people who I'm going, how do you have a career? How do you have role after role when not only do you not get it, but you don't care about the craft about it,
And for me, it's about the craft. It's not about the ego. It's about the craft. It's about I keep saying it's about the fact that you get to participate in creativity. You get to take words off the page and bring it to life. And it's a lot of fun. Oh, and hey, they're going to pay you to do it too. Hey, bonus.
Yeah, nice. And you're essentially around forever, because your episodes in whatever will be shown forever.
Yes.
That's a nice feeling too. That's a nice sense of immortality.
It's immortality. But also, depending on the show, like a MacGyver, that show has legs. It has staying power, because particularly like most relevant right now, the gun episode.
Right.
If you rewatch that now and compare and contrast to what's happening in the world today, you're like, man, is that episode on point? Right?
And the challenge. The
Yeah, the
challenge
challenge,
is
same
another
thing.
one where they're like, I hate him because he's black. Like,
Yeah,
woo!
that episode ever on point again?
Yeah.
Right? And still relevant today,
Unfortunately.
but still relevant, still a story that you can point to somebody and say, you know what? There's history attached to this.
Yeah.
Look, if you watch this show, I mean, it's from a number of years ago, but if you were to even like fast forward that to today's time period, that's still relevant. Wow. And it's still trying to get the message across. Wow.
And it sparks conversation. Like in our house, my wife and I will say, watch The Gun with the kids, and we look at each other, and even Mikey, my son, will go, wow, that's just like what happened on the news with, and then I'll pause it and I'll say, yeah. And then it becomes this 45-minute conversation before we continue the episode.
Yeah, where you're like, and it's again, it brings forth conversation, it brings forth discourse, and I can't stress that enough, how important that is right now, that we have conversations, that we don't all sit quietly and go, this is so big, it's so overwhelming, there's nothing I can do to bring about some change.
Right.
No. Right?
Like ripples in the water.
And don't talk to people just on social media, because social media gives you that anonymity. Where everybody's an expert, and if I can hide behind my keyboard, I can throw it out there like tossing a grenade in a room and step back to see what happens. No, you need to talk to people in real life.
Yeah,
you talk to people, look them in the eye and talk one-on-one, and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Are you thinking the same? Here's what I'm seeing. Are you seeing the same? If you're seeing it differently, please explain to me why you're seeing it differently. And I'm open to and receptive to hearing your opinion, your point of view, because I'm starting from the position that what I think I know and what I may actively 100% believe in may not be right. And when I explain that to my children, I say, here's a concept, right? Once upon a time, we thought the world was flat. And people would tell those people that said, no, it's not, and they want to get on a ship and go explore, and you're crazy. But if those people hadn't, someone hadn't said, hey, what if there's a different way of looking at this? Hey, what if, right? Most of our evolution as human beings came because somebody said, what if? Right?
Exactly. Somebody had to try something.
Yeah, we can't all be sheep. Somebody has to stand up and say, I will be the shepherd.
And it's something, because with the episode The Gun, back to Brees's arc, at that point, Brees is going to the boys club for an Earth Day thing and sees his friend and runs over to say, what's going on? How can I help? And because of that, the cops think he's the guy. Yeah. And that could have ended really, really bad. They were about to charge in the door, guns a-blazing, for a kid who didn't have a weapon at all.
He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But trying to do good, too.
Yeah. Good intentions, right?
It's so true to life, unfortunately.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And the whole conversation where Brees gets bailed out and they take him to the gun factory. And MacGyver goes in to get him, and they kind of start a little debate. But the way that it happens, I've always admired, because, it's a sore spot for MacGyver too, obviously. And when he goes, yeah, I'm one of those, like he's kind of proud of it. Yeah, I have a problem with people getting shot in their homes or on the street, political candidates like that. Yeah. That's knowledgeable debating. And I remember, this is back in 91, and I'm 45 now. So watching this, I learned a lot of my ability to debate through MacGyver, for example, because it's not just having an opposing opinion, it's being knowledgeable, but knowing when to just let it go. Like, we're not going to get any further with this, and that was one of those scenes where it's a touchy subject. I'm not going to say you're all right, but we do just want to go. But I also want you to know you're wrong. Like that, what?
I want you to know that in my opinion is this. My point of view is this. My perspective is then I don't agree with you
Yeah.
on that. But I'm not going to beat you over the head with the fact that I don't agree with it, right?
Right.
I'm just going to put that out there, food for thought. And that's kind of how I saw that, right? It's
Yeah.
food for thought. And for me, it also made me think, well, what is my opinion on that? Not me as a character, but me as a person. What is my opinion on that? Well, I'm not a fan. I'm with MacGyver on this one. Right?
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys. Right? My character, different thing, but me as a person, I'm you know what? I'm not a fan. So
yeah, I'm the whole when they said the Second Amendment rights, and everybody jumps to that, but he even points out in a very smart way, you might want to read that. It talks about a well-armed militia. Basically, not everybody on the street just shooting at each other like it's the Wild West.
Again, see how still poignant that is today,
right?
When
Unbelievable.
you see people with an AR-15 and AK-47 walking down the street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you in the military?
Right.
No. So why do you have that much
firepower?
Yeah.
I know. And that it's allowed too is amazing. Like even hunters, you don't need an automatic to,
That's not hunting.
No.
Massacre.
Exactly.
That's a massacre.
Now, you give the deer the gun too. You got some competition.
Balance it out a little bit. And again, I know. We could, like I said, we go down that rabbit hole.
Me and you. I'm
very
just
touchy.
Like, oh.
Very touchy.
How old were you when you got, I believe it was The Challenge was your first episode. Do you remember how old?
I'd like to say I was 19 or 20. I'm not sure. I was still young enough to play teenagers.
Yeah, but a big teenager. I mean, you were not a small child. You were tall and.
Well, I've never been a small child. I grew between age of 15 and 16. I literally grew about 8.5, 9 inches.
Oof.
And put on about 30 pounds. But that was deliberate. I made a conscious decision. I was picked on a lot. I don't know how much of my history you know, but I was born in Grenada.
Okay.
I moved to Canada when I was 9. I had a strong West Indian accent. I came literally time warped from a third world country to a first world country.
Wow.
Yeah. My family was, we were the only black family on my block. I was one of maybe 3 black kids in my school. There was a lot of picking on and all that. And I was not a very big kid at the time, but then I decided, actually I came across an article in Sports Illustrated in my doctor's office, and it was about a football player and his workout routine and I was like, I'm doing that. And so I kind of grew and I worked out religiously and I just sprouted, and I got to be a very big kid, but I was still, and somebody pointed that out to me, even though physically I changed, emotionally and mentally, I was still the kid who got picked on at school, who got beat up and after school, and I was bullied for a lot, and so I endured all of that. And then when I grew physically in stature, I still thought like the kid who got right.
Yeah.
So I hadn't made that transition yet. So anyhow, and I get this role. And I'm reading, my agent said, they want you to come in and read from MacGyver, and it's this character named Brees, and it's really fun, and he's like a gang leader. And I'm like, I know nothing really about,
Yeah.
But I had the physicality for it. I had to go and learn the other thing. The other piece of that is I had no concept and no knowledge to draw from. The other roles I played up to Brees was, again, I played a lot of gang leaders, but I didn't really understand it and what that life was. I had to go and do some research, right? Because I grew up in, very white suburbia Canada, right? I didn't know anything about African American experience and all of that. I had to go up and I started reading a bunch of books, and that, act in life kind of led to my exploration of, what is the Black American experience? Because I'm going out to read all these roles that are for inner city Black American kids, and I don't know anything about them. So I went and read a whole bunch of different books, and started reading Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Eldridge Cleaver, and understanding what life is like growing up. And then I had context to bring to these characters, because now I understand, because I didn't understand it as a black kid growing up in Canada.
Sure.
Had no context.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Right. And so far removed from who I am as a person, but
Thank God.
right. But it's called acting. So I learned, and I had stuff to draw from, because now I understand what that experience was like. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I could bring some, okay, I read this, and I read in this book that this is what life is like for them, just going out on the street, and how fearful that could be, or, how you have to be when a cop car pulls up. I mean, I didn't even know any of that stuff, right?
Sure.
To this day, it's still, right? But I understood, and, not to go too deep into a rabbit hole, but you're not just a person sometimes. When you start to understand what racism was like, and what it's like to be, that's the reason why I was being bullied, is because it's not because I was a weak kid, it's because I was other, because I was different, and learning how not to be angry about that, and learning that, my parents did an excellent job of saying, hey, people are fearful because they don't understand, and they're afraid of what they don't know. And you are different. You have a West Indian accent. They probably never heard that before. They don't know where Grenada is. They don't know. They don't understand our culture. So you are different. You need to be an ambassador. You need to show them that you are not other. You just come from a different background. And they're not native to here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of, so I think I got to be a comedian and a writer and an actor naturally, because a lot of my early transition from coming from a third world country to first world country was me being an ambassador, me learning how to be a chameleon in a room, me learning how to shed my West Indian, right, and becoming more Canadian. I could switch on the fly, where I could turn off the West Indian accent and turn on not the generic American accent, or turn on the Canadian accent. And later on in life, I read an interesting article that said that people like me, people who are African American, Canadian American, whatever you call it, Canadian, African Canadian, what's called code switching. We're masters of code switching. I can switch. I not only do I don't just speak Black West Indian, I speak Black African, I speak Black American, I speak Black Canadian, I speak white.
Well, and that leads me to, I was going to ask you, where did you come up with the Brees voice? Because it's different than you.
Yes,
it's a little
100%.
softer. It's very soft, yet it's got the attitude in it,
Well, like I said, when I get a script, I immediately write down, as I'm reading, anything that pops into my head, right? And as I was reading it, this cadence and this voice came. I had no idea. Sometimes the character just speaks to you, but the cadence, the voice, the fact that he very rarely, even when he was angry, very rarely raised his voice.
Right.
Those are all the things I wrote down.
It's still a whisper.
As I was, and I'm like, oh, those are some good choices. That's I don't know, I call it the energy of the writer speaking to you. Right. That's what came to me. And it's the same when I read a book, and I'm sure if you read a lot, I read a ton of books, right? Probably 3 or 4 in a week. When I read, you disappear into a book, and if
it's a good one, yeah.
you hear the characters speak a certain way, and you start to do that. And in your head, they look, walk, talk, smell, everything, right? It's the same for an actor. Like, that's why I've gotten it in the habit. Like I said, when I'm reading a script, all of those things that come to you when you're reading a good story about how the character dressed, how he walks, how he talks, I read all of that down. And that's where Brees came from. I wrote it all down. And Brees, it's funny actually, and also Brees, that part came to me. I just come back from New York, and I'd been in New York visiting my cousins, who, like me, left Grenada, but I came to Canada. They went to New York, right? Their way of living and acting and talking was different. than mine. So I brought all that back to me. So Brees is probably most influenced by my cousin Dexter in New York.
Really?
Yeah, right. Because he lived in Brooklyn,
Mhm.
and here's a funny example of how Brees is like Dexter. So I'm green as grass. Everything I know about America, and it's particular in New York, I'd even read on the read in a book or seen in the news. So I arrive to spend some time with them, and I'm terrified because all you've heard about New York is people get mugged and people.
Sure.
And my cousin Dexter got shot on his doorstep for his leather jacket. That's his life, right? So I'm terrified. And for the first few days I'm there, everybody's still working and what have you. And so they gave me a key and gave me directions how to get to the subway. And I didn't leave the house for the first 2 days.
Sure.
Because I'm terrified.
I'm
I'm not
with you.
going out in New York by myself.
No.
But then we go out, and he introduced me to his friends, and we're downtown Manhattan, and we're walking. And in hindsight now, I remember when it happened, but I'll tell you this: we're walking, and somebody bumped me, and I'm whatever. And then we go for lunch. Time comes to pay the bill, and I reach for my wallet, and I can't find it. And my cousin and his friends are killing themselves, laughing. They're not feeling bad for me. They're laughing, and they're like, "Dude, you are walking downtown in a crowded space," and he pulls my wallet out of his and puts it on the table for me. He says, "Did you not feel me bump you?" I said, "I felt somebody bump me when we were walking." He goes, "That was me. I could have been a pickpocket. You had your wallet sticking in your back pocket. I bumped into you, said, 'Excuse me,' took your wallet. You didn't even notice." He says, "You're not street smart."
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Brees is influenced because Brees has to be street smart.
Oh, yeah.
Brees is aware of his surroundings. So if you see me in a lot of those scenes where he's present, he knows exactly who's around him and what's going on. That's because those boys in New York taught me that. Be present in the room, know Brees would walk in a room and know exactly where the exit was. Right?
Yeah.
Right? I learned that in New York from hanging out with those cats whose life is different than mine, because I didn't have that built-in fear growing up in Canada.
And it's amazing because Breeze is, like you said, everything is still a whisper. Even when he's saying, "Back off, woman," he's an intimidating presence. I mean, that's probably the angriest I think we see him get is, because she's pleading to him, "Help me, help me." And he shrugs her off.
Yes.
It's still an intimidating guy.
But again, I learned this from those cats in New York.
It's amazing.
Because they're the ones who said to me, "Dude, you're not even," like, they watched me because they grew up hard. They grew up having to be fearful of the police. They grew up understanding the racism that was in your face. And he said to me, one of them said to me, he said, "Charles, you are like a gentle giant." He goes, "You're a big guy who takes up a lot of space, but you're not aware of it." And I kind of, when I was reading, the character of Breeze, I was like, he's a big guy. Physically, he's mean. He's a big guy. He doesn't have to raise his voice to get attention. He doesn't have to shout. His very presence in a room says danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So he doesn't have to get angry and yell. And they say sometimes, if you want people to listen, whisper. They're forced to pay attention.
Everything changes. Yeah,
Everything
you're right.
changes. When people yell, they do it with your kids. When you yell at your kids, they tune out. But if you get down to their level and speak to them in a nice, solid, comfortable voice, you could be angry, but you want them to be paying attention. So you don't yell.
That's true.
You whisper. You speak in a nice, even, and I used to do it with my son when he was younger, and he'd have temper tantrums. He would go up and I would go down. He would yell and I would talk softer. He would yell some more and I talk softer. And after a while, he didn't realize it. He kept talking quieter and quieter and quieter because Dad was talking quieter and quieter and quieter. And my wife listened. She goes, "What did you do?" I said, "I just psyched him."
Honestly,
right?
Didn't know it was. I know.
Yeah, you're yelling and I'm not yelling. So eventually you kind of have to bring your tone down, or else you kind of look silly with you yelling and me talking in a nice quiet voice.
Yeah.
So.
It's all control. It's being aware of the moment and staying in control. Because a lot of people, you yell, well, I'm going to yell. Because now it's a battle, but nobody wins.
Nobody wins. But if I there will be no fight if I refuse to fight.
You're fun.
Is it just
I don't want to keep you too long, but there's a couple things I know I want to discuss. You're welcome to come back anytime, obviously. And I love this. This is a nice, good conversation. What I want to remember to ask, two things in particular. Do you remember the episodes that you tried out for before you got Brees? Just out of curiosity.
No. I don't remember what the one was called, but I had 2 auditions before Brees, but they were not for characters like Brees.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is I'm going to go back now, watch the previous episodes, and go, I wonder if that could have been him.
Yeah. And you know what, Mac, I have to admit something to you that I'm guilty of. I rarely ever watch my stuff.
No, I'm with you. I know that's a common thing. I'm a singer-songwriter. I don't listen to my own music because I'm too familiar with it.
Yep. It's the same with all my comedy shows and stuff, and I've toured doing comedy, and I record all of them, but I rarely ever really watch them.
Right. Right.
I might watch them, or listen to it just a couple days afterwards. I've never been comfortable watching myself on screen. I also make it a point not to watch shows that I've auditioned for that somebody else has gotten. I'm like, nah, I don't want to see it.
Now you're gonna drive yourself nuts.
I'll be frustrated if, damn it, they made choices. Oh, that's what they were looking for.
Yeah,
right.
I know I'm the same way.
And I've learned over the years as an actor, being an actor is like, go into the doctor, except it's a reverse. If you go to the doctor and they do a bunch of tests and they call you, then something's going on. If they don't call you, there's nothing to report. Well, an actor's the same way. When you audition for a part, if they call you, there's something going on. If they don't call you, get on with your life. There's nothing to happen. There's nothing to report.
That's the other thing too. Yeah. For the acting that I've done, I've been mostly fortunate that I've gotten what I've tried for.
Yeah.
But I don't envy that. You have to keep going out and you have to keep auditioning, and you may want something, but you may not get it. I admire you and people who can continue to do that.
As I tell my son who wants to be an actor, and my wife tries to understand what it's like to be married to an actor, auditioning is what actors do. That is the work of what we do.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. That's leaving your calling card. And every time I get an opportunity to be in the room, it's not just me auditioning for that part. It's me leaving a calling card, because I have a lot of stuff on my resume that I did not audition for directly. But I got a phone call. My agent would call, say, hey, they want to book you. And I said, I did not. He goes, no, you didn't audition, but you auditioned for this director 3 months ago on something. He remembered you. You weren't right for that one, but he thinks you're right for this, and he's not even going to audition you. It's yours if you want it.
That's wonderful.
That's a gift.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So again, I say to, when I'm talking to other actors who are frustrated with the auditioning process, I'm like, dude, if you don't love auditioning, you're in the wrong business, because that's what we do. Yeah. That's our job. Once you book it, that's gravy. Then it's day camp for adults. And it's seriously, I've been blessed. I mean, the MacGyver people, the producer, just how classy these guys are on MacGyver. I have letters downstairs that I have to frame still, from Henry Winkler, Michael Greenberg, Richard Dean Anderson. After every episode, I got a letter thanking me for being on their show.
Oh,
that is class.
Yeah, that is.
Thank it. You know what? I'm gonna scan a couple of them and send them to you just so you can see. Like, Rich, I have a letter from Henry Winkler thanking me for coming on the show and being in part of the episode and the gun, or being, and blah blah blah, and how great it was. And I'm like, wow, like
tears.
that to me is the epitome of class. And you meet people who conduct and compose themselves with integrity. And I've learned from these guys. Richard Dean Anderson, I've had the great pleasure. I worked with him. You probably didn't know this. I did MacGyver with him. Mm-hmm. I did Stargate with him. Mm-hmm. And I did a movie with him called The Spiral Staircase.
Spiral Staircase?
Yeah, it's the name has changed quite a few times.
Because I guarantee I own it, but I don't know what it would be called now.
I'll have to look and see, and I'll send you an email with that. But anyhow, I got to work with him, and every single time, I mean, he's a big star.
Yeah.
Humble. Charles, welcome aboard. Thank you for coming out. It's great to see you again. No ego, no, hey, this is my show, this is my movie, none of that. And I've worked with others who shall remain nameless,
right,
been the complete opposite. And what a difference it is when you work with people, like I said, who have integrity, who are grounded, and who are just happy to be doing what they do, and with no ego attached to it, right?
Yeah.
The entire cast and crew, like everybody was always warm and friendly. The writers, the producers, they were all just just happy to be working on something together, happy to be doing, and I'm glad that I have more experiences like that than the opposite, where you're on a show with somebody who won't even shake your hand or make eye contact. I'm not going to get names, but I've had that experience.
Yep.
And you're like, seriously? That's not necessary.
And it makes a difference. I mean, that makes you love the person forever, but also, they remember you. You get to. That was my question. Did you, with Stargate, did they remember you? Because a lot of the same people were involved.
A lot of the same people were involved. A lot of the, and yeah.
Is that how you got that part?
Yeah. You show up, and again, I am, I'm a journeyman actor. I have no desire to be a star.
Right.
So I'll show up on your project and say 3 lines. I'll show up and say 3 paragraphs. I don't care. I'm a Canadian actor on a movie set. Big smile on my face, grin ear to ear. So when I got the call, the first time I was on Stargate, and I was like, absolutely, Charles, it's not really a big role, but they like you over there. Don't even have to audition. Boom. What day am I working?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was a big fan of Stargate. Like, seriously. And I know, I knew Richard. I'd worked with Amanda before. I'd worked with Michael before. I know Michael's wife. Christopher Judge, who played Teal'c. Teal'c and I, Christopher Judge I knew Chris before he was Chris.
Yeah.
Right. So just to be, it was, and a lot of the episodes were directed by Peter DeLuise that I worked on, and I worked with Peter DeLuise on 21 Jump Street. So, right, we all knew it's a small circle. So it's like going home and hanging out with your friends.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't, whether I'm the guest star or the guy who's doing, whatever, they treated everybody the same. There was no hierarchy. It was just, Amanda is just, oh God, I love her.
Yeah. I
will work with her any day, anytime. If she's listening to this, any day, anytime.
Yep.
Classy lady.
And fun.
Comes up, fun, classy, remembers you. She hasn't seen you in 6 months, and you show up on set, and you're, and she comes over and hugs you, and hey, it's so good to see you. And here's the thing that she has that my wife has that a lot of people don't have. Hey, last time I saw you, we were talking about blah, blah. You haven't seen me in 6 months, and how did that work out? What?
Yeah.
I thought that was a throwaway conversation we had, at craft services. And 6 months later, you're like, hey, I haven't seen you. How did that work out? Or that's a gift.
That's
my wife
wonderful.
Has that.
That's a cut
gift.
above.
Yeah, a cut above. Like, just, So yeah, I will work with any of those people again.
Yeah, I hope you do.
Yeah,
because the rumor is we're like, 11 clicks to 12 that we're getting a new Stargate series. I pray to God.
I've heard that. I've heard that as well.
Which baffles me that it didn't happen 10 years ago. That was a show that never should have went off the air.
That show had so much potential and so much legs, and I was not just as an actor, I was a big fan. I'm a big sci-fi guy, and I watched the original, Stargate movie and went, wow. I don't know if Peter Williams.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Peter Williams and I are good friends, and and I was like,
Apophis,
I wanted that role. Right? But
he wanted Chris's role, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I also wanted Teal'c's role too, but Chris, some people, it's like the role was written specifically for them. You know what I mean? Like, some people step into a role and then you can't see anybody else play in that role. Teal'c, that's Chris. I mean, Chris is a big. I don't know if you've ever seen him, met him in
Oh
person.
yeah, I've met most of them. I still have yet to meet Amanda, but I can say I've had the pleasure of meeting just about everybody else.
Yeah, and Chris, well, he's a big boy. I'm a big guy, but Chris is big,
way
like,
up there.
Yeah, and such a unique stature and a unique look to him. Like you go, yeah, I can't see anybody else playing Teal'c. Like, some people just step into a role and it's theirs. They wear it like a second skin. And he's like, nobody else can play that.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
I'd like to think nobody else can play Brees, but that's
well,
just my
clearly. Thus why you're here.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to let you go, but I swear to God. Oh, was in the movie that you were in with Rick, was he playing a bad guy?
No, he plays a carpenter. He's a good guy.
Yeah, that's a bad guy. That's Eyes of a Killer. It became.
Oh, they changed. Oh, it changed the name
with Mark Helgenberger.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
and he had the dark black hair. I knew that was the one. Yeah, he ends up being a killer.
Dude, they change the names of movies all the time, and it's like I can't keep up.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm here for you.
Yeah. I still have it on my resume. I think it's on my IMDb as the spiral staircase, but
Oh, geez. Well, yeah, when you get a chance, send me those letters, and what I'll use them in the credits so that people could see them. But plus, I'll shed a tear reading them because
not a problem.
Like you said, that good people are much more important than a good show.
Yeah. Well, we all, from my point of view, when I said this before, when I'm on a movie set, we're just here to tell a little story.
Mm-hmm.
We are not.
You're not curing cancer. You're just
there are people out there doing things that are much, much more poignant and important. Frontline. I have a lot of frontline workers in my family, right? Mm-hmm. Because of them, I get to do what I do. Right. Yeah. I have cousins that are EMTs in New York. I have nurses. I have doctors, teachers. Right. They're doing God's work.
I was just about to say they're doing God's work. Yeah.
And I, because of them, get to do what I do. Yes. So why would I have an attitude? Why would I not be, get up in the morning and step out in the world, be grateful.
Yeah.
And know that you are not more important than the next guy, because everybody is doing something that's important, that's a piece of the puzzle that create the culture and the ethos and the ecosystem that we live in. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. There's no room for ego. There's no room for attitude. There's more room for gratitude. Be thankful that you get to do what you do.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I'm always grateful.
So what were you working on? You said you were working last night. I want to give you some buzz about what's coming up.
Well, I can give you a little bit of it. I'm working on a film. I actually have the lead in it. It's called The Surrogate.
Ooh.
And it's a very interesting story. It's when you think of surrogate, you think someone's giving birth to somebody else, but no, it's about a young man who didn't have a relationship with his father. He's about to become a dad and wants to rebuild that relationship. So he hires me to be his surrogate father. Mm-hmm. To stand in so he could say to all the things that he's always wanted to say to his father and mm-hmm. didn't have a relationship with, to get that out. And it's a lot of crying.
Yeah.
That's but again, I feel very blessed and fortunate because the director of this, I'd worked with him on another film, and he was the cameraman in our film. And then he's getting actually making his directorial debut, and he pinged me on social media and says, Charles, I really enjoyed working with you. I got the script I'm directing, and I'd love for you to to play the part of Daryl. So I said, sure, I'm happy. Let me know when you want me to come and audition. Thinking, and he goes, no. It's yours if you're the guy. I'm like, wow. So he sends me the script, and I'm like, I'm reading it and I'm crying.
Oh.
It's so poignant, and we're in the middle of filming that now, and I've got a couple more days to go next month, and then hopefully it'll be out and it'll be good. So.
How's it been filming during the pandemic?
Different.
Yeah.
Smaller crew, no craft services. Wear a mask and until you're actually on set and the camera's rolling, and take your mask off and hide it, kind of thing. It's just different.
Yeah,
it's a surreal experience. Mm. because you want to hug people.
Right. Right.
And you can't even shake hands.
I know, that sucks.
And a lot of the people on this was he brought a lot of the crew and some of the cast from the last movie we did. So I know all these people. And so you show up for the table read and we're all spaced out and you want to go around and, man, I haven't seen you in months and I want to hug you. And you can't even, you're doing
Just
the
elbow them.
No, actually, I've gone to Wakanda Forever.
Ooh, nice. Very good.
A little tribute to my boy Chadwick,
As a comic book guy myself, I love that.
Yeah. So I'll show up and everybody, I'm like, and those who get it, and those who don't.
And at least they'll know it's a hug. It still shows it's a hug.
It shows love, man. Like I said, seek to do no harm, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let you go and keep me apprised of when the movie comes out.
Will do.
Because I'll, promote the heck out of it on the Facebook page and everything else.
Will do.
And we'll keep in touch.
Excellent, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure, buddy. Thanks for the great conversation.
No worries. Take care.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. The MacGyver podcast is part of the Forever Adventure Network. Some original artwork by Joseph Arnold. Donations can be made at Patreon to Mac Jackson. Look for our group pages on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at MacGyver Podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. And remember, stay creative, everyone. The Forever Adventure Network. Welcome to the adventure. Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything. Pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver Podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old Podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.